Would Lane Kiffin leave Ole Miss for Florida? Locked On SEC starts right now.
You are Locked On SEC, your daily podcast on the Southeastern Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Would Lane Kiffin leave Ole Miss for Florida? Locked On SEC starts right now.
You are Locked On SEC, your daily podcast on the Southeastern Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Locked On SEC. It's great to have you guys along. I'm Chris Gordy. Thanks for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Shout out to everydayers. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts, and now on the Gulf Coast Sports and Entertainment Network, broadcasting daily across Alabama, Louisiana, Mississippi, and of course on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, cover your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use our code Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase. All right, we are presenting the big question. This is what everybody is throwing out there. I feel like I've done this show 30 times already in the past few years, but would Lane Kiffin leave Ole Miss, and would he lead them for Florida? And joining us now to talk all things about this is our buddy Steven Willis from Locked On Ole Miss. Steven, same old song and dance. We feel like we've done this episode multiple times together.
Yeah, absolutely. It seems like every year is the same thing over and over. And this Lane Kiffin to Florida thing has been a year-long story that we've been talking about. Listen, would he go to Florida? I don't know. That's up to him. That's a personal preference thing. But if he does go to Florida, it's not because of anything that Ole Miss did. He has a top 10 in the nation's salary. He's the highest paid defensive coordinator in the SEC, a top 1 or 2 top paid offensive coordinator in the SEC, and his NIL collective is efficiently running. Now, it all becomes personal preference. My thought is, and I talked about it on a show that I'm going to do a little bit later on in the week, this Oklahoma game feels like it's getting more and more massive because the one card that Florida can play that Ole Miss can't rebut right now is, can you win a title at Florida as opposed to winning a title at Ole Miss? If Ole Miss beats Oklahoma, there's a solid chance that they go 11-1 and play in the SEC championship game, the playoff, and that card disappears as well. But unless that happens, if Ole Miss loses to Oklahoma, if Ole Miss drops another game, if they go 9-3 or 8-4 this season, that seems to be the card that is going to get played. But like I said, it's a personal preference things right now. Nothing concrete is out there, and it's all a matter of what Lane Kiffin is thinking, and that's a pretty scary place to live.
And it is wild because as good as Ole Miss is playing right now, I mean, the tough loss to Georgia, I said it before the season. I picked these as their 2 losses, but, find me a third loss. And the tough part would be, what if it's the Egg Bowl? What if Jeff Lebby has his team ready to go and they drop, and for the second straight year, they just narrowly miss the playoff and go 9-3? Well, is Florida willing to wait that long? Are they willing to wait until the last week of the season to see if Lane Kiffin goes 10-2 or 9-3? And is that the ultimate decision? I mean, feels like it would be a money move, but again, Ole Miss seems pretty committed to stepping up to the plate and paying him like a top, 10, possibly top 5 highest paid coach in college football.
Yeah, the rumors that's going around right now is Keith Carter, the athletic director, is in the process of putting something together really similar to what Kurt Cignetti just signed. And if that happens, all of a sudden it's Katie bar the door because you are highest paid absolutely everywhere. Now, I understand that Florida is a really good job, but if it was so easy to do this at this job, if it was such a slam dunk, you would have thought one of the last 4 coaches would have gotten it done there as well. So there is that part of this as well. It's kind of convoluted. It's very toxic in Gainesville, as you know. That's right at my doorstep, what's going on. They will turn on you in a second. Now, they love their Gators, but they will absolutely turn on you. And Lane's personality it's a perfect fit for Ole Miss because he has all the freedom to do all the extra stuff that he wants to do. That will not fly at all at Florida. And it would be a similar situation to where he went to a blue blood with USC to where he just started grading on them over time. And then when they had the excuse and the reason to do it, they tarmacked him.
Yeah, and look, it's all about expectations too. They're throwing parades for him at Ole Miss for having these 10-win seasons. And yes, they want to take that next step and make the playoff. But I don't know if anybody's saying, Lane, if you don't do it, we're going to be fired, you know? Whereas if you go to Florida, that is the expectation. Now, I don't think they'll expect it in year one, but hey, within 3 years, we want to be uber competitive and making the playoff. And I just feel like that's where you talk expectations. I could live out here at Oxford, be one of the richest guys ever, have great success, maybe win a championship, maybe we make the playoff, maybe we don't, but we're having great fun. We got a great program, we're rocking and rolling. And if we dip to a 7-5 season, no harm, no foul. People will go, it's ebbs and flows, whatever. But if you go to Florida and you go 6-6, 7-5, 6-6, they're going to be going, you're not living up to the expectations here. You get fired there. So that's a tough battle. And let's just put Eli Drinkwitz in the same boat. His name's been thrown out there.
Mm-hmm.
Got a good thing going at Mizzou. You go 7-5 next year, nobody's yelling fire him. You know what I mean? So that's where it's like, it just feels like Florida, yes, bigger program, no doubt, but higher expectations. And is that a good thing?
Yeah. And lots of fans as well, they haven't adjusted this new era of college football. They still think like it's 2008 and Tim Tebow and Urban Meyer is going to run through the door. That doesn't exist anymore. You're going to have ebbs and flows. Look what happened to Florida State. They go from 12-0 to 2-10, all because their evaluations in the transfer portal wasn't up to par. That is what's going to happen. Lane's not going to suddenly go high school centric in high school recruiting all of a sudden just because he went to Florida. No, he's a portal guy. That is what he believes in. That's how he handles things. That's what's comfortable. That fits his personality. So you're going to have a problem with high school recruiting if he goes down to Florida. You're going to wonder what's wrong. Is he a bad recruiter? What's happening? No, he's just comfortable with what he's doing. And that's another thing. Would that fly in Florida? And I don't think it would, honestly, because the first time that you don't sign 3 Lakeland Dreadnoughts, which, by the way, that's the best nickname in the history of high school football. The first time you do that, everybody in Florida starts going, oh, there's a huge problem. Because one year, Chris, just so you know, Urban Meyer signed 8 players off of that team out of high school. 8 players. And if you are not going to be willing to play that game with the relationships and everything that happened in the state, they are going to get nosy. The boosters are not going to be quiet. The boosters are not going to sit down. All they think of right now is, hey, pay him the money and he will come to Florida because this is Florida. We're the shining city on the hill. That isn't the case anymore.
Continue our conversation with Steven Willis of Locked On Ole Miss. And Steven, I do want to talk a little bit about Ole Miss here in just a second and the on-the-field product. But real quick, let's take a look because I did see the odds came out. One of the sports books out there, they have odds for next Florida coach. They have Lane Kiffin right now penciled as the favorite. That doesn't mean anything. It just means where the betting line, they're setting it, and they think that, Lane Kiffin is the most likely to jump. But Jeff Braum at number 2 best odds, James Franklin at 3, which – I can't believe, Stephen, the people I read online that are like poo-pooing that, going, oh, we don't want James Franklin. Like, dude's a good coach. Like, you can do a lot worse than James Franklin. If Eli Drinkwitz at plus 700, Marcus Freeman seems like a pipe dream. I don't know why he would leave Notre Dame. He's got a good thing going. They put Urban Meyer in here plus 900. I don't think that's happening. The GOAT's not coming back.
That's called bait.
And then they've got Jed Fish and Alex Golesh kind of at plus 1,000 and plus 1,200. But just curious your thoughts on, we discussed Lane Kiffin, but Jeff Braum, James Franklin, Eli Drinkwitz. I don't know if, Jeff Braum's a good coach, but is everybody running to sign up for season tickets with Jeff Braum at Florida?
Yeah, Jeff Braum just beat Miami, which Mario Cristobal right now is apparently about to clean out the state of Florida of both coaches at major programs. But James Franklin at Florida would honestly be scary. It really would, because He was a missed evaluation on Drew Aller away from winning a national championship at Penn State. I mean, that's it. They had everything else. His recruiting, everything was in place. One missed evaluation cost him that championship. And listen, I was at Vanderbilt whenever James Franklin was there on a signing day. We were with Yahoo Sports and we were covering the signing day. And hearing James Franklin interact and communicate just the stuff that he does on the staff, that's a bright guy. He is somebody that I do not want to see at Florida or in the SEC, period. I'm hoping that all the stuff keeps them from actually being able to do that, because that's the name on that list that I would be scared of. I don't think Lane is eventually going to go down there. I think they're going to take their second or third choice. James Franklin is somebody, if they decided, hey, this is going to be the guy, that would be scary down there.
So if you had to put your name on it, just make a prediction. Somebody said, if you get this right, you'll get $1 million. Who would you say is the next Florida head coach?
Alex Golesh.
Okay.
I think they're going to take a couple of swings, get a couple of no's, and then they're going to emergency settle, because that's what Florida does.
Look, I like him. We have family at USF, and we've watched all their games. USF's awesome. Byron Brown, he's turned into a really good quarterback.
And they have the best wrought iron fence around their university in the entire country. They've got the horns on the outside. It looks fantastic. I drive by there on the way to the VA every time I go there. So, yeah, it's pretty fantastic. Once they get that stadium built on campus and they do that, USF, they're going to go to the Big 12 at that point.
And of course, his playbook, he came from Josh Heupel's offense.
Mm-hmm.
We remember him running those offenses under Josh Heupel at Tennessee. So, yeah, look, I wouldn't hate the hire, but it does feel a little bit like another Billy Napier. Like either he's going to be a hit or he's just not going to succeed at this level. That's the dangerous part with the group of five guy coming up to the big leagues.
Yeah, that's the reason I don't put John Sumrall as a candidate for Florida at all, because their resumes are remarkably the same as him and Billy Napier. At least Alex Golesh, there's a win in the swamp. They won the game, all of that right down the road. You've seen it happen. It's not going to Louisiana Lafayette and picking out their coach.
Talking with Steven Willis, Locked on Ole Miss. All right, give me a quick thought on Ole Miss, because look, I was wrong. I thought Georgia at home, their defense was going to show up and show out. I thought Trinidad Chambas would have maybe his worst game of the season. That was not the case. The Ole Miss offense showed up, and they were awesome. The Ole Miss defense, Pete Golding with a little bit of egg on his face because they just couldn't get a stop.
Yeah, that was terrible. Ole Miss ran the same defense that they ran against LSU, to a bunch of drop eight. You could handle LSU's running game. They thought, I guess, that they could do the same thing to Georgia's running game. And what you saw was there was no stress put on an offensive line. A lot of five blockers to block three players. And those running backs run extremely hard. Ole Miss was still essentially one play away from winning that game. If they get the running back down on that 4th and 2, they win that football game. But that defense, man, was absolutely atrocious that day. Pete Golding is the highest paid defensive coordinator in the entire SEC. And that is the product that went on the field, especially during preseason when we were told pretty consistently that this defensive line, you're not going to see much of a drop off from what they were. Well, that was a lie, because you're not covering up for the secondary by nerfing the defensive line if they could do it. So we'll see. I think Ole Miss has a much better matchup against the Oklahoma Sooners. I think the only team left on Ole Miss's schedule that can do to Ole Miss what Georgia did are the Florida Gators, and now they have all the reason in the world to quit. So we'll see what happens. I think Ole Miss can drop 8 and play against Oklahoma. They can do that against John Mateer. You basically have 5 spies playing zone. If you can get to the quarterback and make him run around a little bit, you're going to be all right. But if Ole Miss can get past Oklahoma, win that game, as we talked about last segment, then the one card that everybody can play on Ole Miss about not being able to do it goes away, because Ole Miss at that point would be favored to go 11-1 on the season. And if they go to 11-1, SEC championship games on the table. Everything's on the table at that point. But it all comes down to this game. And it's going to be difficult because Brent Venables and that Oklahoma defense is really good. But Trinidad Chambas, man, he showed up and showed out in his first road game at Georgia. And if he can replicate that again and Ole Miss can score 24 to 30 points in a game, I don't know if Oklahoma can do that.
I think, can we put to bed any talk of Austin Simmons returning, barring an injury? I mean, it feels like this is Trinidad's show the rest of the way.
I think the Georgia game is about what you're going to see. You know, when Trinidad Chambas was brought in, everybody thought that Austin Simmons was going to be the quarterback and they were going to bring Trinidad in for packages. I think that's flipped. You saw that in the Georgia game with both quarterbacks on the field from time to time. I think there is going to be a little bit of package, especially in this Oklahoma game. With both quarterbacks on the field, they're going to figure out a way to do some stuff. But you're right. This is absolutely Trinidad's team. And honestly, if Ole Miss wins the game against Oklahoma, Trinidad's right there in the Heisman race.
Yeah, no doubt. He's been absolutely special. It surprised all of us. And look, you win this one, you get a mulligan. I mean, you can lose the Egg Bowl, and okay, maybe you don't go to Atlanta, but I think at 10-2, you're in the playoffs. So crazy to think that the team that loses Jackson Dart and Walter Nolan and everybody else is the team that goes to the playoff potentially. So it's gonna be fascinating to watch. Steven, thanks for the time, man. Really appreciate it, and we'll do it again soon.
All right, appreciate it, buddy. Take care.
All right, when we return, a quarterback change to come at Auburn. We'll discuss the latest coming out of the play-ins. More Locked On SEC in just a second.